Why do people think the way they do? Why do we act in ways that sometimes surprise even ourselves? And most importantly, how can you use psychology to not only understand others but also to understand yourself better? In today's video, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of psychology. By the end, you'll have a powerful roadmap for decoding human behavior, recognizing hidden patterns in yourself and others, and applying this knowledge to live smarter, more connected, and more meaningful lives. This isn't just about theory, it's about real world strategies you can use every single day. So let's begin. At its core, psychology is the scientific study of the mind and behavior. It's not just about therapy or diagnosing mental illness, though that's an important part. It's about understanding why people do what they do. Think of psychology as a lens. With it, you can zoom in on the small details of someone's choices or zoom out to see the bigger picture of society and culture shaping them. Psychology asks questions like why do we form habits? Why do emotion influence decisions? What makes some people leaders while others prefer to follow? Why do we sometimes sabotage our own happiness? And once you start asking these questions, you realize psychology is everywhere in business, relationships, education, sports, politics. Understanding psychology means understanding the invisible forces that guide human behavior. Psychology, as a formal science, is only about 150 years old. Before that, human behavior was mostly explained by philosophy, religion, or guesswork, and Skinner studied how conditioning shapes habits. Fast forward to today, we now blend biology, neuroscience, sociology, and cognitive science into psychology. This evolution matters because it shows us psychology isn't a fixed field, it grows, adapts, and updates just like people do. And that's your first key takeaway. To understand psychology, you must stay curious. It's not about memorizing facts, it's about training your brain to look deeper into human motives. Let's break human behavior down into four key elements you must understand if you want to speak the language of psychology. Our thinking patterns, beliefs, assumptions, biases shape how we see the world. Feelings drive action more than logic does. We like to think we're rational, but in reality, emotions are the hidden engines of behavior. Repeated behaviors become automatic. Psychology studies how these habits form and how we can rewire them. No one exists in isolation. Culture, family, peers, and media shapes us more than we realize. When you understand these four forces, thoughts, emotions, habits, and environment, you have a framework for decoding almost any human action. Here's a secret: before you can use psychology to understand others, you need to understand yourself. Ask yourself, why do I react strongly to certain situations? What beliefs did I inherit from my upbringing? Which habits help me grow and which ones hold me back? This kind of self reflection is called metacognition, thinking about your own thinking. The more you practice it, the more you see patterns in your own behavior. For example, let's say you procrastinate. Instead of beating yourself up, psychology helps you ask, what's the real cause? Fear of failure, perfectionism, lack of clear goals? By digging deeper, you move from judgment to understanding and from understanding to change. Psychology teaches us that behavior is rarely random, it's always a response to something, internal or external. If you can learn to see past the surface, you'll understand people on a deeper level than most ever do. Let's go deeper. Much of psychology operates below the surface, what Freud called the unconscious and what modern psychology often calls the subconscious. Think about it. You don't consciously decide how to tie your shoes every morning or why you suddenly feel uneasy around someone who reminds you of your past. The subconscious is always working. Habits, memories, emotions, many are stored beneath awareness. This is why psychology is so powerful. It reveals the invisible scripts that guide our lives. By becoming aware of the subconscious influences, you gain freedom. You're no longer blindly acting, you're choosing consciously. Now, let's get practical. How can you actually use psychology in daily life? Learn body language, tone, and active listening. People reveal more than their words. By decision making, understand cognitive biases like confirmation bias or the anchoring effect. This protects you from bad choices. Your motivation. Psychology teaches us how rewards, environment, and identity influence your habits. Want to stick to the gym? Make the habit easy, rewarding, and tied to your identity. History is full of examples where psychological techniques were abused for propaganda, control, and exploitation. That's why the most important rule is this: use psychology to empower, not to exploit. When you study psychology, you carry a responsibility. Always aim to use it for understanding, compassion, and positive change. So, how do you understand psychology? You start by seeing that thoughts, emotions, habits, and environment shape behavior. You study yourself first, then others. You recognize the subconscious forces at play. You learn practical tools for communication, decision making, motivation, and relationships. You stay curious, skeptical of myths, and grounded in ethics. And when you do this consistently, you don't just study psychology, you live it. You begin to see people differently, you begin to see yourself differently, and life itself becomes a little less confusing and a lot more meaningful. That's the power of psychology, and now it's in your hands. Remember, understanding psychology isn't just about knowledge, it's about transformation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.